with Disney finally seeing their chickens come home to roost after biting off a bit more than the mouse could chew. ESPN is being hit and then hit some more. With that, a certain tech giant is wanting to take a bite out of the sports broadcasting apple, if you will. I'm Troy from Marks on TV, and today we're talking about a possibility of Apple taking ESPN off of Disney's hands. Now, on with the story. The links to the articles I'm referencing can be found in the video description. Apple should buy ESPN from Disney for $50 billion, says analyst who calls a deal a no-brainer. Disney's CEO is searching for a strategic partner for ESPN as he looks to adapt the sports network for the streaming era. Would he entertain an outright sale? Apple buying ESPN from Disney to accelerate its entry-level global sports media landscape would be a no-brainer. Wedbush managing director Dan Ives wrote in an analyst note yesterday, an acquisition, which he estimates would be in the $50 billion range, would make the Apple TV Plus streaming service more attractive to subscribers by adding more live sports, the golden goose of content. Cupertino plays chess while others play checkers, Ives told Fortune in an email. The deal, he said, would make a ton of strategic sense for Apple because it would gain valuable sports content, major TV rights across each of the major professional and college sports packages, and change the cross-sell opportunities and attractiveness of Apple TV while putting Apple on the sports map globally. ESPN declined to comment for the story. Apple did not return a request for comment, of course. The speculation about an acquisition comes after Disney CEO Bob Iger floated the idea of selling a stake in ESPN once the company's crown jewel. The network is grappling with consumers abandoning their cable subscriptions, which puts its business in danger of a slow decline. Iger has said that he is open to strategic partners that could help the company with either distribution or content, he told CNBC in July. Disney is open-minded about the type of deal it would strike with a third party or the value that the partner might bring, content, distribution, or even just cash. The one imperative for any partner, however, was that they accelerated ESPN's inevitable transition to streaming. Quote, taking our flagship ESPN channel direct to consumer is not a matter of if, but when, Iger said on an earnings call earlier this month. 24/7 sports broadcasting is just like 24/7 news broadcasting. Some people like it. It was hot when there was literally nothing else to watch or to do. But in a world where we can get a million sports takes from TV, radio, YouTube, podcasts, and pretty much everywhere else, ESPN has lost a lot of its luster. That's on top of sports doing everything that they could in the past 6 years or so to get politicized, which drives away viewers that may even agree with their sentiments, but nobody wants that injected into sports ball. Period. But besides that, there are only so many sports and so many takes and so much content that can fill up a 24-hour broadcast day. Most of that ends up being a repeat after a while, even if it's technically a new show. You just get recycled, warmed-up opinions and the same old clips over and over, unless there's a game on. On-demand and streaming is seriously the way to go for this kind of stuff, in my opinion. Anyway, back to the article. Some of the partners Disney has in mind were the very sports leagues that are broadcast on ESPN. Disney reportedly offered equity stakes in ESPN to NBA, NFL, and MLB, presumably as part of negotiations for their contract renewals. In buying ESPN, Apple would give its Apple TV Plus streaming service a lift. It has a limited amount of content compared to rivals like Netflix and Max and is trailing in market share. I want to say that they're pretty much at the bottom of the heap as far as rankings and ratings go. Even if I'm wrong, they're at the very least in the bottom two, along with Paramount Plus. A deal would give Apple access to 74 million cable subscribers and an ESPN Plus streaming service that has another 24 million paying customers, according to Disney's 2022 annual report. Despite a decline in Disney's ad revenue from cable overall, ESPN's revenue was up a modest 4% in its latest quarter from the same period a year earlier and up 2% from the prior quarter. Disney Chief Financial Officer Kevin Lansbury said on the company's latest earnings call. Well, I suppose putting a slowdown on the bleeding is always good, but when you're hemorrhaging blood and on death's doorstep, stopping the blood flow to just a consistent drip isn't exactly groundbreaking, life-saving stuff. But I digress.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Nobody!
So far, Apple has dabbled in sports content, acquiring the broadcast rights for leagues like the MLB and MLS. With the MLS, Apple landed the league's global distribution rights rather than national or regional ones that are the standard for live event broadcast rights. Apple also narrowly missed out on a college sports deal with the Pac-12 before a conference realignment earlier this month scuttled its plans at the last minute.
Oh no! Anyway, last week...
Meanwhile, Disney is already making some changes at ESPN. Earlier this month, it entered into a 10-year, $1.5 billion licensing agreement with the casino and sportsbook operator Penn Entertainment that will allow Penn to use the ESPN branding on all of its sports betting assets. It's nice to see that Disney is so desperate that they're turning to a hugely profitable sports betting organization just to help prop up their failing sports network. Anyway, in March, Disney's company-wide layoffs of 7,000 hit ESPN as part of a plan to trim $5.5 billion in costs. That was followed earlier this summer by ESPN cutting a raft of high-profile on-air talents. In his notes, Ives cited challenges to Apple buying ESPN, including Apple's longtime reluctance to make major acquisitions. The last time it made a major acquisition was in 2014, when it purchased music headphone maker Beats for $3 billion. At the time, in addition to its headphones, Beats had an upstart music streaming service that was eventually folded into Apple Music. I don't know much about Apple's business plan and their eagerness or lack thereof to make big purchases or major acquisitions, but this just seems like small potatoes and, as I've said, a no-brainer. Well, with a few caveats, I suppose. Bob Iger claiming that he wants another partner to come in and basically do for ESPN what Disney can't, and then Disney reap all the rewards, is freaking hysterical. Why would any company agree to come in and partner with you and get ESPN on track, clearly by their own hand, just so that you don't have to relinquish total control? Screw that. If I were Apple, I'd have a hardline stance on this. Disney has had ESPN since 1996. Obviously, for the majority of that time, ESPN has been a money-making machine. But times have changed, and media has drastically changed. ESPN never changed, at least not in a positive manner, and they got left behind. Period. If Apple thinks that they can make money with it and make it profitable again, they need to stand firm on 100% ownership or nothing. I tell them that if Disney thinks that they can turn it around by themselves, be my guest. They haven't figured out this new media landscape yet, and all signs point to they won't anytime soon. That would be another caveat is, does Apple think that they can evolve ESPN to be profitable yet again in this new media landscape? It could possibly be done, but you can't pull a G4 TV. G4 was insanely popular during its first run, but then YouTube and Twitch streamers came along with similar content for free and more often, and sometimes far better. G4 tried making a comeback, did nothing new and impressive, tried to coast off of nostalgia bait and their familiar name, and they weren't respectful to their audience on top of everything else. Because of that, they face-planted quickly and in spectacular fashion. Could ESPN turn that ship around under the Apple banner? Who knows? But as I mentioned in my previous video about Apple wanting to buy Disney outright, supposedly, and whether or not they should, this all comes down to, yet again, regulators in government across the world. This would inevitably end up in courts and cost everyone time, money, and hassle. World governments would burn their citizens' tax dollars trying to fight Disney and Apple in court over a freaking sports network buyout. They'd tie this up in litigation for years, and then the buyout or merger would eventually happen. That's how it always goes, and it wouldn't be any different here. I suppose that's the final caveat. How much hassle does Apple want to go through to buy a failing sports network and streaming rights?
Not a great plan.
Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on the situation. Do you think Apple will go through with this purchase of ESPN? Do you think Disney will let them? Do you think anyone can turn it around for ESPN at this point and make them a top name in sports yet again? Let me know in the comment section. Also, please share this video around to everyone you know, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that little bell to be notified every time we post brand new content. I'm Troy from Marks on TV, and we'll see you next time.